Hello everyone, we hope you can hear us okay. Welcome to the online, virtual Women in Engineering session today. We're so glad you can all make it. We would have loved to welcome you onto campus itself, but unfortunately during the current situation we're just not able to. But we've put together some really amazing speakers today. So my name is Charlotte, I'm from Aston University, I work in the Student Recruitment and Outreach team. We've got some amazing speakers from the Institute of Technology, from West, the Women in Engineering, Science and Technology group, and a wonderful guest speaker, Kari Lawler, as well. So just to let you know, this event is going to be recorded and will be available afterwards. And the chat function will be available throughout the whole session. So feel free to pop your questions or concerns or anything into that chat. However, we will be doing a proper Q&A session at the end, so we'll answer most of your questions during that time. So before we start, if you haven't already, please get yourself a pen and some paper. And at the top of your page, I want you to write down a question. So this question can be absolutely anything you can think of. One question that you don't know the answer to about engineering. So even if it's as simple as what is engineering or who are engineers, absolutely anything you can think of, one question. And hopefully throughout this session, we'll be able to answer that question for you. So really have a think to yourself about one question and write that at the top of your page. And I want to encourage you as well, if at any point, even if you think it's the stupidest question, because it really won't be, I want you to jot down any other questions you have, because at the Q&A at the end, we want to answer those questions if we haven't already throughout the session. Okay? I'll now pass over to Emma from the Institute of Technology, and she will do a quick talk for us there, okay?
Yep, thanks very much for that, Charlotte. Hi everyone, my name's Emma and I'm here to talk to you today about the Greater Birmingham and Solihull Institute of Technology, which is a really exciting new education partnership. And it's a partnership of employers, so those that are providing jobs, colleges and universities, and the aim is to get more young people into apprenticeships and into courses around engineering and manufacturing. So I don't know if you know, but the West Midlands is a really like hotbed. We have a thriving manufacturing sector, and there are lots and lots of jobs available within that. The UK itself as well needs more engineers, so we're crying out for young people to kind of come and work with us and get into those jobs that are going to help like the individuals to grow, but the country as well. I'm just trying to skip to the next slide. Hopefully you should see the next one now. There we go. So I thought it'd be really useful to talk you through some of the careers that are available within the sector. So you might not have thought about it yet, but there are lots of different things that you can go into. So as you can see, lots of them involve design. So if many of you haven't really thought about what you wanted to do next and kind of thought about what engineering is, one of the things that I wanted to emphasise was there's lots of design elements within it. So if you are into creative kind of arts and design, maybe have a think about how you might combine that with kind of chemistry or science or maths, all these other things that you can do, and bring those two things together because they're a really nice match. So this is just a few of the jobs that you could potentially go into, and I've put some links there for you as well for the National Career Service and for prospects if you wanted to go and do some research after the session and dig down into some more detail. It's got loads of really good information on there. So for example, how much salary you may earn if you go on to do the job. But I was going to mention just a few of them. I've mentioned knitter purely to highlight that if anybody is into knitting or creative pursuits, if you're making stuff, you're manufacturing, that is a manufacturing job, but you may not consider it to be one. An analytical textile technologist, you might be wondering what that is. So that is a really kind of skilled job that you can go into, where you could either go into it via a textiles route or you could do an engineering route as well. And what it is that you have to kind of understand textiles, you understand the fibres, you have to choose materials that could go into kind of big industrial products. So for example, it could be the seating that you sit on in an aeroplane. You have to really work with the science behind the material and understand what it needs to kind of make it durable, to make it waterproof, to make it safe basically, and last as long as possible. And you can go on to do postgraduate study as well with that. So there's lots of opportunities available in areas that you might not necessarily have thought of. As a starting salary, you could expect from around £25,000 in a graduate level job, and beyond that, as a manager, you're looking at kind of £50,000 plus, and that could go beyond that as well. So really good one to look at. Aerospace engineer as well. That's actually big business for the UK, but not many people might know that. The aerospace industry in the UK is again thriving, and we don't send people up into space, but obviously we send like products. So you could be working on, next time you sit on a plane when we're allowed again, have a think about kind of who built the plane, what would have gone into that, and that is something that is an opportunity that is open to you. So yeah, have a think. And they will do things like calculating distance for kind of like takeoff, looking at how to make kind of engines more sustainable as well, because obviously we want to reduce pollution. All of these things go into that. And then obviously you've got a lot of research and development as well, 3D printing technicians, so 3D printing is massive, lots of stuff that you can do. And again, for some of these in managerial positions, you could be expecting to earn like £60,000. So there's quite a lot of money if you're into that behind some of these jobs. So the Institute of Technology gives you access to working with employers. So that can either be through a placement or study and work at the same time as well. These are some of the companies that you could have opportunities with. So you've got Worcester Bosch Group. So they make boilers. So you'll all have a boiler in the house, and they're working on some really exciting projects as well at the moment. So if you go home today and have a look at your boiler, maybe have a look and think how you could make that more exciting. It could either be through design. Could you change the colour? Could you do something to make it, much more high tech? Can your boiler, can it be controlled from the home through technology like that? Can you switch it off if you forget to turn it off? Can you do that via a phone or some other technology? Have a look, because that's what they're working on at the moment. Also, they're looking at low carbon. So again, looking at different fuels, what kind of fuels they can use to kind of make it more energy efficient and better for the environment. Collins Aerospace as well are a big one. So you may not know this, but they created the propeller. Amelia Earhart, who did the non-stop flight around the Atlantic, you might have heard of her. So they actually made that propeller. And again, it's not something that they necessarily shout about, but you've got lots of exciting opportunities within aerospace that you could pursue. Continental are based in Lichfield. I don't know if any of you are based in Lichfield, but you could check them out as well. And they're looking at making driverless vehicles. So that will happen. So there will be cars on the roads without a driver. What will happen? With that, they need people to work on those, kind of work out hazards. Also thinking about technology like that, they'll need cyber specialists. So what happens if somebody hacks into kind of a driverless, like autonomous system? Like, how can you stop it? Because that could potentially happen, which sounds a bit nightmarish, but I think it's really interesting personally. Salt Healthcare as well are a local company who make medical devices, and they're local, but it's a really lovely sector. They're doing a lot to respond to the pandemic. So obviously we're in a situation we've never found ourselves in before, and they're doing ever such a lot. So some of them have provided materials for ventilators to go into hospitals. Some of them are 3D printed masks. Also, some have provided PPE as well to the healthcare sector. So they're doing a lot of really good stuff. Oh, apologies. Skipped past. Just to let you know, these are the study partners that you could come to. So you could come and study Aston, but then you could also study at one of the local colleges in Solihull, BMet, Bourneville, Southern City, or you could go to University of Birmingham or Birmingham City University. So we are a partnership, and there are opportunities based at all of those institutions. So just to highlight the routes that you could go through. So the main really important thing is to get into any of these careers and courses, really you need hopefully 5 GCSEs at grades 9 to 4. So I would say that if you can get that basic foundation of GCSE, you're really, really good to go. And then after that, you could go down the apprenticeship route. So you could do a higher engineering apprenticeship at a college, and then you could do a degree apprenticeship at a university. And that means that you're working at the same time as studying. Or you could do the kind of standard full-time education route, do your GCSEs, do your A-levels, and again, think about your subjects that you're picking. So think of some, maybe engineering and design. And after that, you could do like a full-time degree at a university of your choice. So yeah, that's an idea of the routes. Hopefully that's been interesting, but I'll be around for questions later. And I'm now going to pass on to Charlotte again.
Hi everyone. So what is engineering exactly? So I think you'll find that the whole world consists of engineering. Nearly everything you see and use on a daily basis has been designed and created by an engineer. So from when you are woken up on a morning from your mobile phone, from the alarm going off, to scrolling through the rest of your phone for the rest of the day, so that might be on TikTok, through your banking app, through taking photos with your friends, or even using Siri because you can't be bothered to type in the question yourself. From when you drag yourself out of bed on a morning and apply your makeup, foundation that perfectly matches your skin, to brushes that collect the perfect amount of powder. That's definitely not an accident. From being driven to school by car, bus, tram, or train. From the smallest of items to the largest. From the everyday to the extraordinary. And who's behind that genius? Engineers. So engineers from all different backgrounds, specialising in different sectors, different roles, all of which may have studied completely different qualifications. Some may have done A-levels, some may have done BTECs, some may have done an apprenticeship, whilst others have gone to university. Engineering is not just a man in a hard hat working on a building site. There are so many different professions available, any of which are available to you if you work hard enough. And here are some wonderful examples. So on that note, we're going to play a game. These wonderful women on the board here are inspiring engineers of the current time. I'm going to read out some statements, each of their roles, and I want you to guess what role they have within the engineering sector. So on your pieces of paper, please write 1 to 5, and you're going to be competing against the rest of your class. So we want you to guess the profession within the engineering sector. Profession 1, Gwyn Shotwell. So Gwyn, she has to use maths and design skills to create machines used in some kind of transportation. Her job relies on her expert knowledge of physics and space. So based on those statements there, I want you to guess what role Gwyn has within the engineering sector. So have a think by yourselves, and remember this is a competitive quiz, so you're competing against the rest of your classmates. Okay, and profession number 2, Mi Tian. So she says, my job requires me to wear protective equipment like goggles and a lab coat, as I have to work with dangerous chemicals. I have to use my maths and problem-solving skills to produce products like drugs, food, and fuel. Have a think about what you're going to write down for profession number 2. What do you think Mi does as a job? Okay, profession number 3, Yale. She says, I need a good knowledge of how to use technology, particularly mobile phones. I have to use my analytical skills of data and creativity to design technology. What do we think Yale does as a profession? So hopefully, even if you can't think, have a really good guess and write something down for this answer. Reshma Shetty. I have to have a good knowledge of the human body and of how technology can advance the human body. I enjoy my job because my work contributes to the science that helps improve human lives. Have a good go at writing down what you think Reshma does for a job. Okay, and the last one, Profession number 5, Sandrine Mabenga. My job requires me to work hands-on with tools and wires to build systems that create energy. I need good math skills, a good knowledge of physics, and an enjoyment for working practically. So there are all of the statements for all of the professions. So if you haven't got an answer down, quickly write one down now, because we're going to go through the answers. And I want you to give yourselves the biggest tick if you get anything similar to the answer, and I want you to gloat to the rest of your classmates if you've done better than them. So Gwyn, let's remind us what Gwyn's statements were. So I have to use my maths and design skills to create machines used in some sort of transportation. And my job relies on my expert knowledge of physics and space. Gwyn is in fact an aerospace engineer. So Gwyn actually studied a mechanical engineering degree with applied mathematics. So what that means is she did something called a joint honours degree. So she combined her interest for mechanical engineering and maths and studied them both at university. After she graduated, she became a professional engineer and then ended up progressing in her career to the point she is now, where she is an aerospace engineer at a company that designs spacecrafts. So Mi Tian, remind us of their statement. So I have to use my maths and problem solving skills to produce products like drugs, food and fuel. And my job requires me to wear protective equipment like goggles and a lab coat, as I have to work with dangerous chemicals. Give yourself a big tick if you got the fact she was a chemical engineer. So Mi is a chemical engineer and lecturer at the University of Exeter. So she specifically studies the chemicals seen in our everyday lives and how they work. So her aim is to look at how they work and how she can make them more sustainable. So her job is to focus on that to reduce our carbon footprint and essentially help the fight towards global warming. Yale. I have to use my analytical skills of data and creativity to design technology, and I need a good knowledge of how to use and design technology, particularly mobile phones. If you've got anything related to data scientist, computer scientist, I'll even accept technology engineer, anything along those lines, I'll give yourself a big tick, because Yale has a really cool job. So she's actually the director of analytics and data science at Apple. So she is in charge of the app Siri. So she uses data and her analytical skills to evaluate that data to improve Siri and make it even more useful for all of its users. So if you've got an iPhone, this is the person working on the data with Siri. So that's pretty cool. Reshma Shetty. So we know that she says, I have to have a good knowledge of the human body as well as technology to do my job. We know she enjoys her job because it contributes to science that helps save human lives. So you get a big tick if you put biological engineer. So Reshma, she's a biological engineer specialising in synthetic DNA, which is an incredibly valuable field at the current time. And after years of success in this field, she actually owns her own company now. So she co-founded and became CEO of a biotechnology company based in the USA. So she absolutely smashed her field of work, and now she is one of the biggest leaders in it in the USA. Sandrine Mabenga. So we know that she says, my job requires me to work hands-on with tools and wires to build systems that create energy. She says, I need good math skills, a good knowledge of physics and an enjoyment for working practically. Give yourself a big tick if you put that she was an electrical engineer. So as an electrical engineer, Sandrine works specifically at the minute on electric vehicles. So these are becoming more and more popular, and it's her job to work on the battery pack to make sure those machines run for as long as they can. So they are just a handful of some really inspiring female engineers that are around today. And the thing is, they all started exactly where you are now, in a classroom. So there is nothing stopping any of you from following their footsteps or progressing into another field of engineering. And on that note, I'm going to pass over to our lovely guest speaker, Kari. I will let you take over from here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kari, and I'm going to be talking to you over the next 10 or so minutes about my journey into tech, what I've done to get into kind of a tech software engineering career, and also hopefully some things that you can take from that to do yourself if you also want to get into kind of STEM. Basically my journey started back when I was about 13, which is kind of an unusual age to start getting into an actual tech career, but I'm only 17 now, so it was only a few years ago. Basically, I left school at the age of 13 and found myself with quite a bit of free time. Even though I was still studying at home, I still had a lot of time just to explore different things. I was looking for things to do and randomly ended up watching a documentary on the BBC about something called the Loebner Chatbot Prize, which links quite well to, you just saw the woman who is the director of Siri, which Siri is a chatbot. I then kind of set myself the challenge to learn how to code. So to learn how to kind of do software development in a couple of weeks, and within those couple of weeks I'd built myself my own Siri clone, so I've basically my own version of Siri that did the same thing. From that I thought that was pretty cool, so I wanted to share that with people and show that to other people. So I ended up contacting Google UK, and they then sent out a press release about me to all of their kind of press contacts, which ended up opening a lot of opportunities and doors for me. The main one being I got accepted onto an incubator program, which basically just means like a business development program in Birmingham, actually on the Aston University campus. And that was really supported me to kind of grow what I thought was initially just a chatbot into being more sort of a business. And through that, I started trying to find projects to work on. So I'd kind of built this one thing. I was like, I want more things to do. And it kind of pivoted into me then becoming someone that businesses in the area came to do artificial intelligence development for them. So over those few years and the last few years, I've worked on a multitude of projects for different companies, ranging from doing health projects with doctors from the NHS to working with casinos and working with education providers, as well as one of the first projects I did was actually for a competition for the UK Space Agency, where I was looking at satellite data and how that can be used. So it's just really interesting projects that I've got to work on in those few years. Through this as well, I've also been invited to do a lot of speaking events and just go out and talk to different people and different companies, and have been invited to all sorts of different places. So probably the most exciting one was when I got invited to do something called a TEDx talk over in Zurich, Switzerland. As well as that, just going down to London quite a bit and doing lots of events with loads of different people. I actually spoke at a Barclays event, they're one of their main conferences, to over 500 CEOs of some of the top companies in the UK, which, as you can probably imagine, for someone my age, that's a lot of connections and different things to have. Also, I've not recently, 2 years ago, started my own youth program. I found that there was a gap in education and learning about artificial intelligence for young people. And over the last 2 years, I've worked with 4,000 young people to help them develop their own skills within artificial intelligence and stuff like that. And also, I feel like I keep going on, but I've also got quite engaged with regional politics recently. So regional policy in terms of digital policy as well as skills policy. So I'm currently a board observer for the West Midlands 5G board. So we have the biggest test bed for 5G in the UK. As well as advising the mayor and his office on what digital policy should look like for the future. Now, it does sound like a lot and a lot of opportunities, but again, all this started when I was 13 on my own, with a bit of parental support, just trying to go out there and find projects to work on. So some of the key things that I kind of did to start off with, to kind of put myself out there, start doing things, was one, was just making sure to keep learning all throughout the process. So I kind of said at the beginning I left school, but that doesn't mean I stopped learning. I carried on doing my GCSEs. I took my GCSEs last year. Actually, I started studying for them in January of last year and then took them in the May, and did kind of computer science, maths, just your normal GCSEs that you take. As well as that, not just relying on those subjects, going out there and finding courses to work on online. And I always say this to all the young people I speak to, in that if you want to learn something, there are so many free resources out online that you can find to just build your skills and knowledge in something. I'm completely self-taught when it comes to programming, and I'm working on projects with massive companies. Recently, I just signed up to do an actual university module with MIT, so I have to stay up really late because it's all on US time and do live lectures with them on quantum computing, and that was fully free and subsidised by IBM for young people to do that course. So you can see, if you just go out there, find something that you're passionate about, like what I did, you can find loads and loads of resources to go and learn. You are quite high quality to carry on learning while you're still at school. As well as that, I think another one is just the way I kind of got out there and got all these opportunities was that I actually did physically go out there and try and get opportunities myself. I didn't wait for people to come to me or wait for certain points in my life. Like I said at the beginning, I got in contact myself with Google. I get in contact with companies, attend events, and one of the key ways I found to engage, which might be quite useful, is through social media. And I'm not talking about using social media how you typically would, like what you usually do to like interact with your friends and stuff. I basically created special dedicated social media to my projects, where I would share what I'm doing with people and with the community. And I've actually, people are quite surprised when I tell them the amount of opportunities in terms of like speaking and going to traveling and stuff I've gotten through social media. My trip to Zurich purely came because someone stumbled across my Twitter profile. I got invited to do an event with Vogue in London, which came from someone, again, from my Twitter profile. And all my Twitter is me just sharing kind of projects that I've worked on and things that I find interesting. And it's stuff that you can start doing now. So I think that's kind of the key points in my journey. It was just making sure to continually learn, continually grow, carry on focusing on things that really interested me, which for me was artificial intelligence. For you, it might be something else. But STEM, again, is such an interesting subject to get into, and there's so many different projects to work on in so many different disciplines. And it's so exciting. One of my NHS projects, actually, I ended up taking a 3-day course on radiography, and just the stuff that I learned through that was so valuable, even though it was for kind of a software engineering project. So once, obviously, learning is really important. Creating, I think the best way to learn really is through creating projects, trying to find things to work on. That's how I would say I actually accidentally built a business, in that my business came about from me literally trying to find projects to work on. And that's the way you learn and the way you share things, work on things that interest you. And then really the most important thing is no one knows what you're doing if you don't actually go out there and show them. And I think first steps, of course, are like social media, going to events, doing kind of speaking and stuff. And you'll usually kind of think sometimes there's a fear of going out there and sharing things, but most people are super supportive and love kind of seeing young people working on projects and sharing things. And I found a lot of support in the community for that. So that's kind of my sort of brief history of some of the stuff I've worked on, as well as hopefully some points that you can take with you, which are to literally just carry on learning. Don't just, like I said, don't just rely on school. School's great, obviously, but you're doing a lot of things in one day, and if you're interested in one subject, there are so many things you can be doing externally to that. Build projects, so start working on things that really interest you, and then of course, most importantly, share those projects. Go out there, find like-minded people and build up networks, and that will really help you for obviously university opportunities, extracurricular opportunities, and then career opportunities in the future, like it's helped me now. So yeah, thank you. I think I'm going to pass you on to the Aston West group now. So yeah, thank you.
So, hi guys, I want everyone to pick a pose and stand up and pick one of the poses from the pictures there. I'm going to give you a minute to get into the pose. Okay, so if you chose the first pose, that's the tall and proud pose, so that shows you're powerful. And if you chose the second pose with your two hands on your waist, that's the Wonder Woman pose, and that shows you're bigger and more assertive. So my name is Ola. Oh, just waiting for the next slide. Yeah, my name is Ola, and I'm the vice chair for West, and I am in my second year of mechanical engineering.
Hi, my name's Natalie, and I'm the outreach manager of West, and I'm in my final year of computer science.
Okay, so Gabriella can't unmute herself, but that's Gabriella, and she's the chair of West, and she's in her second year of PhD.
Okay, I'm here. Hello. Hi guys, sorry about that. I had a bit of a technical difficulty there. That was a bit scary. Yeah, hi. So that's me throwing my hat in the air when I got my degree. And I got my degree in applied physics, and now I'm doing a PhD in physics, but I'm actually doing a PhD in photonics, which is touching on some of the things that Kari was talking about, actually. I'm going into a bit of quantum computing. But we are all part of the organisation of West, which is a student society at Aston University, and West stands for Women in Engineering, Science and Technology. And we basically got together because there's a need for more women in engineering, and we want to explain to you why that is. So let's look at the UK. We have only 24% of women in the STEM workforce in the UK. So that's only less than a quarter. And if you think about it, women is 50%. We have 50% population of women. So why is there only half the amount of proportion of that in STEM workforce? And then if you look at women in engineering, we've only got 10%. So it's even smaller for women in engineering. And then if you look at women in tech, that's only 16%. And so these percentages are really small, and you'll be surprised at how many effects this has. Because as Charlotte spoke about earlier, all of these tools that we're using are being designed by engineers or technologists. And if there's only a very small percent of women, then we're not really having a say in the tools that are being made. So we're going to go on a little bit more about that a little bit later. But that's basically why we started West and why we support each other. So me and Natalie and Ola and all the other great team that we have at West, we support each other and we encourage each other. Even though we're in the minority, we're making sure that we're there for each other.
Right, so I'm just going to talk a bit about imposter syndrome, which is mainly, experienced by people within the minority group in STEM. So imposter syndrome is like a psychological feeling based on the assumption that you know less than the other people around you, when in reality, you most likely know equal to what people around you know. It's the idea that you feel like you don't belong where you are right now, or you're not qualified, or like you're basically a fraud somehow. So an example I'd give is when I recently placement in September, which is basically a year of work as part of my degree. At the start of my placement, I kind of felt like really out of place. I felt like they're going to fire me any minute because I have no idea what I'm doing. Everyone around me seems to be getting like quicker, but in reality, I was there to learn, and I wouldn't have got the job if I wasn't qualified. So I think I want you guys to take away from it is that you earned the position you're in, and like if you've worked and you should just keep going, and it's only an assumption, it's not, and you do belong where you are.
Natalie, I think you've got connection issues.
Right.
Hopefully everyone understood that. But yeah, imposter syndrome is really important, even if, you know, whatever stage that you are. There's even people, you know, in late stage careers in STEM with imposter syndrome, and I think it's sort of something that you have to keep an eye on to make sure that you feel that even though if you don't know anything, you're still there to learn. So today we're going to talk to you about inclusive innovations and what they are. So innovations, obviously the things that are being created. You've got these different innovations for technology or biology or chemistry. There's all kinds of innovations using science and using maths. But inclusive innovations is something where you're creating a sustainable and accessible solution to problems. And not only are you doing that, but you're ensuring that these innovations can be used for all of the end users. So everyone that's using those tools are able to use them without any bias against them. So that's really important for those innovators. The people that are creating these tools, they have to know what their biases are. They have to know what their privileges are. So if they don't know what their oversights are and what they don't know, what they haven't considered, then they can't really design tools for everybody. So it's really important that we have inclusive innovations, because as we showed before, there's less women in engineering or less women in tech. What does that mean? That when those tools come out, the people that have been creating them might not have considered what it would be like for a woman to use it, or what it would be like for, I don't know, somebody from an ethnic minority to use it. So these are all considerations when we're talking about inclusive innovations. And what we're going to do now is we're going to talk to you a little bit about some innovations which aren't inclusive, and later on we'll see if you can spot your own.
Right, so I don't know if you all heard about the exam results this year. If you did and you think they were fair, could you please type yes in the chat? If you didn't think they were fair, can you please type no? Okay, cool. So I'm just going to show you some of basically the formula they used, and see if you guys change your mind based on that. So this is the formula they used to decide on students' grade. As you know, they didn't get the chance to take their exams because of COVID-19. So the first thing used in the formula, CKJ, is the historical grade distribution at the school. So this is students, all of the students in the school, their past results. Then we've got QKJ, which is that student alone, their own predicted grade. Then we've got PKJ, which is the predicted grade distribution of previous year. So that's all of the students from previous years. And then we've got RJ, which is the number of pupils in that class, basically how large that class is. And as you can see, there's a problem with this formula, because the only thing that's reliant on that student alone's ability is like only encountered for once in that formula, whereas everything else is reliant on other students they don't know. So there we can see there's an issue with that.
Natalie, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Does that mean that if I had my grade, that my grade would be affected by the students that got A levels before me at my school?
Yeah, that's exactly what it means. And that's why we can see there's an issue with this formula, because it's not relying on you as a student. It's heavily relying on other students from previous years. And yeah, that's why this formula was later on scrapped, because it wasn't fulfilling what it was supposed to do.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So basically, in summary, if you was in a smaller class, you're most likely to be awarded your predicted grade. So classes with less than 5 pupils were awarded their predicted grades, whereas classes between 5 to 15 students, they used the predicted grade and the algorithm in combination. Classes with above 15 pupils, they only relied on the algorithm, which I showed you previously. As we can see, this favours, private schools. They can afford to have smaller classes So, you know, those students would be given their predicted grades. Whereas, you know, other schools, they usually have classes with about 30 students in one class. They would be using an algorithm which relies on other students' results. And we can see there's an issue here that it only favours private school students and more wealthier students. Pass it on top. Yeah. So based on what you've heard now, have any of you changed your mind? Do you still think they were fair? Was it the right choice for them to scrap the formula in the first place, or should they have kept it? Awesome. Awesome. I'll pass it on to Ola now. Thank you.
Okay, so do you think seatbelts are safe for everyone? And I do mean everyone, including the teddy bear there as well. Okay, so I used to think they were safe for everyone, but they're not. So seatbelts aren't safe for pregnant women. Seatbelts aren't safe for pregnant women, and as you can see in the photo, but the first photo, the seatbelt is pressing into the mother's belly, so the baby is pressing into the mother's back, and the mother could lose her baby if, unfortunately, she got into a car accident. But this could have been solved by redesigning the seatbelt. So the bottom bit of the seatbelt goes under the mother's womb. This would keep the mother and the baby safe in case of any car accidents. So when the seatbelt was designed in 1947 or 49, I think, in 1949, they didn't consider women. And bearing in mind, women have been given birth many years before that. They only considered pregnant dummies 47 years after in 1996. So I'm going to pass them now to Gabriella.
So those were some pretty non-inclusive innovations. And there's also been some other non-inclusive innovation like the automatic soap dispenser. And you've probably come across this one before. So if you go into the bathroom and you go into the soap dispenser, sometimes you have these soap dispensers that you don't have to press anything and you just have to put your hand underneath. And what that's actually doing is it's using an LED, probably infrared light sensor, and it's installed inside of the soap dispenser. And what it would do is reflect light that's being reflected from your hand. So when you put your hand underneath, the light would shine onto your hand, and then it would be reflected back, and there'd be a photo detector inside the soap dispenser that will recognize, oh yeah, light's being reflected, there must be a hand here wanting some soap. So I'm going to be able to release the trigger so that soap gets dispensed. So what happens? So if a white person goes and they put their hand under the soap dispenser, they're able to get enough light that's reflected and detected at the photo detector, and that triggers the soap to be dispensed. But then what happens? A black person comes and they put their hand under the automatic soap dispenser, and unfortunately, because they have more melanin in their skin, not as much light gets reflected, but still light gets reflected from their hand and gets picked up by the photo detector. But unfortunately, it's not enough light to trigger the soap to be dispensed. And that's not something that can't be fixed. So for example, this melanin, even though there's still light being reflected, it hasn't been programmed so that it would recognize that that's still a hand there that's asking for soap. And that's the real problem here, is that what they didn't do when they made this automatic soap dispenser is they didn't test it on different skin types. And if they tested it on different skin types, then they would have been able to change the amount of light required in order to trigger this soap dispenser to be released. So what does the person have to do? They have to go and get some white paper and put it under the soap dispenser in order to get soap. And it's really unfortunate because it's not a problem that can't be fixed really easily. It's just the people that designed this, they didn't calibrate it and they didn't check how does it work on different skin types.
That was really interesting, Gabriella, and it's fascinating because, you know, Black people have existed just like pregnant women for our entire time, so it's odd they didn't consider Black people. But this is another example using Google search algorithm. So Google's search algorithm is basically based on semantic networks, and semantic networks are basically, as you can see in the example, is words by association. So furniture can be associated with chair, chair can be associated with seat, and so on. So the data that Google uses to feed out these results based on your search is based on data us as users have inputted into the system, whether that be tweets, Instagram captions, articles, whatever it may be. It uses that to feed into the search results. The issue with this is that, you know, among us, there's racists, there's people who discriminate, who are inputting data, and Google is using this data for the search results. Because of this, it's formed a lot of bias, and one of them is gender bias. So it's caused words to be associated with women and words to be associated with men. And unfortunately, this doesn't benefit women. A lot of the words that are now associated with women based on Google are words such as, you know, affectionate, which can be seen as a negative thing, sensitive, nagging, prudish, fussy. And then men, we've got confident, boastful, we've got daring, you know, most of these are very positive. And because of these associations, it's caused, you know, high job adverts to not be advertised to women, and most of them are advertised to men. So a lot of the time, women don't see opportunities that are available that they may be looking for, because, you know, of Google search algorithm and the gender bias it's caused. So it's unfortunate that Google didn't consider the data they'd be using to feed into the search results, and, you know, it needs to be better and improved to avoid this.
Yeah, that's a real shame, Natalie, because in the end, it's just keeping that sexism or that racism in the system. So basically, all of these prejudices are being amplified and continuing inside of technology.
Exactly, which is very unfortunate, because, you know, technology is becoming a huge part of everyone's lives now. So yeah.
So let's just have a look at that summary of all those non-inclusive innovations that we had a look at. We looked at an algorithm, so that's basically the piece of code that was used to predict the exam results, and how that was unfair to people that were probably in schools that were, you know, larger and that had larger class sizes. We also looked at seat belts and how that's hadn't been considered for pregnant women and vulnerable and their babies, and also automatic soap dispensers and how that was non-inclusive to people with different skin types. And then we just looked at the gender bias and artificial intelligence.
Okay, so we've looked at the non-inclusive innovations. Now we're going to introduce you to some inclusive innovators and what they made. So you know, it is Black History Month. We've got some Black inventors for you. So firstly, we have Jesse Russell. He was the one that created the mobile phone. Previously, the phones were either attached to cars or buildings, and this wasn't really inclusive for people that didn't have cars or people that didn't have ones in their building. So he made them cheaper and more accessible to everyone. I'm going to pass on now to Natalie to talk about the sisters.
So here we've got Mary and Mildred Davison, and they were sisters. So one of their famous inventions were basically the toilet roll holder, which allows the loose part of the toilet roll to be more accessible. And she created this for blind people specifically. Then she also created the sanitary belt. And one of her other famous inventions was the attachment she created for the walker. So her sister, Mildred, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and she was, you know, walking around with a walker. So her sister thought it'd be a good idea to have some sort of a tray and a little pocket attachment to the walker so that she could carry stuff around. And she thought, oh, this is, you know, this would be useful to other people who have been diagnosed with this. So she released this for other people to use as well, which was great.
Those are some great solutions to some problems there. Oopsie.
Okay, so now it is your turn. We've got a competition idea for you. So you can either redesign a product to make it more inclusive. So you could redesign the seatbelt, or you could think of a new product that is inclusive. So you could think of a new hand soap dispenser that's not in the market, and we've got some exciting prizes for you.
I think Charlotte will talk about the prizes a bit later on, but these posters, we're really excited to see your ideas. So you could use exactly as Ola said, one of the things that we've already shown you and make it more inclusive, or you could make something totally new.
And you can keep up with us on social media by following us on Instagram or Twitter.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, ladies. That was wonderful. So this is the point where we're going to ask you to bring up the questions that you wrote down on your pieces of paper at the beginning, or any questions that you've written down or thought of throughout. We would love for you, if you have access to the laptop or computer, or your teacher, to have a go at some questions. So typing them into the chat, and we will distribute that to the wonderful speakers that we've had in this session. So we'll give you a few minutes to have a think if you haven't already, and feel free to pop them in the chat. I have a few questions I'd like to ask while we're waiting. So the people from West, so Gabriella, what inspired you to go down the STEM route?
So when I started STEM, I actually used to be an artist. I used to be a painter, and I used to do art installations. So I used to use light. So I would make projections. I used to call myself, I suppose, a light painter. And then what I used to do was create these spaces of light. And when I did that, I would realize that sometimes there were these different phenomena that I could see, these different things that happened, and I didn't understand how they were happening. I was thinking, oh, if I project light onto a fan and then the light gets split up into a rainbow, why is that happening? Or what if I project this light onto another light, how come it's making this strange color? And then I realized that if I wanted to get the answers to those questions, then I'll have to go and have a look at the science behind it. So then I decided, okay, let me go and do an applied physics degree. And then after that, I want to go into photonics. And photonics is the study of light, or the study of photons. And that's the journey that I've been on. And I can tell you something, it's almost using a different part of your brain when you're going into science and maths and things in comparison to art and creative things. But I think there's a real power in being able to bring those two things together, because when you match them, you can make whatever you want, because there's all of these tools that you can use to create anything you want. So it's really empowering. So I would definitely recommend, if you can, try and match those two sides if you have them.
Okay, thank you, amazing. And what about the other girls from West? So Natalie, what about you? What inspired you to go down the STEM route?
I'd say my older brother. So initially I wasn't really, I mean, I enjoyed the odd IT, I enjoyed, you know, like working computers, but I didn't really realize there was a passion there until my brother kind of opened up my eyes to like programming and computer science. But then looking at it and like looking at the people who were there, I didn't see people who looked like me. There was a period I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. But then, you know, it was the encouragement from my brother that kind of pushed me to go for it and kind of be part of that change and be part of growing the diversity in tech. So it was just something, it was a passion that grew over time. It wasn't a passion that I realized straight away, but yeah, I haven't looked back since I've started. So yeah.
Amazing. And Ola, what about you?
I think I just like fell into it because I always enjoyed like maths and physics, so it just made sense for me to go into engineering. I just wanted to continue my interest in maths and physics, and engineering brings that all together. So yeah, if you enjoy maths and physics or chemistry right now, just go for it.
Amazing, thank you. And Kari, you mentioned that you got into coding when you were younger. What kind of sparked that? Is there anywhere that you saw it, or anyone that inspired you to kind of go down that route?
So for me, I think I said earlier, I ended up watching a documentary on the BBC about like chatbots and stuff, and that kind of sparked the initial interest in coding. It's kind of strange because my actual dad is a software developer anyway, so I kind of was surrounded by computers growing up, but never really had an interest in it at all until I found that one project that actually sparked, kind of inspired me to start getting into it. So I think you just kind of keep looking for it and keep finding like projects to work on, and hopefully find something that also inspires everyone else as well.
Amazing, thank you. And it looks like everyone's being quite shy today and there aren't that many questions coming in. So what I'd recommend is if you do have any questions, then go back through this PowerPoint. We will be sending it out afterwards to your teachers, and go and follow all of the people that you've seen throughout this presentation. They'll have some amazing content on their social media pages, and you feel free to go and ask them any questions about STEM, engineering, or anything from today. So just a quick reminder then, the poster competition that the team from West talked about. So we want you to design a poster which shows off your ideas to make something more inclusive, or create a new innovation that is inclusive to some sort of person or everybody. The deadline for this poster is the 6th of November. And we want you to be as creative as possible. We want you to think like an engineer, and we want to wish you the best of luck. There's some amazing prizes up for grabs. I will outline in an email to all of your teachers on how to do that. But if you've got time now or the rest of the day or in your half term next week, feel free to make it as jazzy and amazing as possible, because you will be in the chance of winning some amazing prizes. So before we finish off today, if you've got your phones available, and ask your teacher if you're able to use your phones, can you do me a favour and scan this QR code? If you can't scan the QR code, I will send an email with evaluation forms, because we want to hear your thoughts on today, whether you enjoyed it, whether there was something we can improve. We hope you all had a really good time, but we'd love to hear from you. So if you've got your phones to scan the QR code, please do that. If not, I'll send an evaluation form in the email for you to fill in. We hope you've had a really wonderful day. I'm going to leave this slide up, and we'll be available for the next few minutes to answer any of your questions as well. Thank you.